Hey everyone, welcome to the Simply Soccer podcast. We got a few really good questions here for you today. I have them here right in front of me. Just a few things before we go. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram if you're not already, because I am posting on there every single day now, and it's going to be the social media that outside of YouTube I am the most active on, and in fact I might even be more active on there than I am on YouTube. I'll be putting motivational stuff, I'll be putting drills, and because we can now do 1-minute videos on Instagram, I'm going to be putting a lot more videos on there as well. So you'll see things like quick tips, you'll see drills, you'll see things like someone asked me about the Argentinian box. I might put that drill on there. I've already put a drill to improve your Cruyffs. I'll probably go over the Ronaldo box a little bit and other drills that can help you in many different areas. I've already gone over a tip for better finishing and things of that nature. So if you're not following me on Instagram, just follow me at SimplySoccer Pro. Just make sure you're following me on there, because that's where I'm going to be most active, and that's also a good place if you want to contact me. Outside of YouTube, that's a good place to do it, because you can just DM me on there, and I answer most of my questions on there. So there's that. Let's get on with the questions. So I have, as you can tell from the title, I don't know if I could fit all of this in the title, but I have mainly 3 questions here. So let's go over them one by one. I'm just thinking, what do I want to go over first? I'm going to go over a pretty light one that's pretty easy to answer and won't take up too much time. So the first one I'm going to go over is how to fit school and individual practice together when you don't have much time, etc., etc. So the person who asked me this basically told me that they don't really have any time in the morning to practice because they already get up at like 5:30, which is pretty early. And they don't really have much time after school because they're doing homework from, I think they said 4 to 8 o'clock. So they said how to fit in individual practice together with school. So now this is going to vary per person, because there are people who do not wake up at 5:30 but could to practice. And then there are going to be people who don't have quite as much homework or something, or have more free time. So it's going to vary per person. Now, first and foremost, I'm not saying slack on your schoolwork. Obviously, for many of you, that's very important, and I would never actually I'm just making sure this is actually going. It is. Okay. I would never ever suggest slacking on that. But you can definitely find time to do some training. So I'm assuming that 5 times out of the week you have school, and you have that same schedule, waking up at 5:30 and then after school having to do homework. So I would focus your main practices on the weekends, but you could still do something little on those weekdays. Now remember, you don't need to practice for hours upon hours upon hours every single day. You don't need to do that. You can, and actually the funny thing is, we're going to go over another concept called the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's Italian, so Pareto. I don't know. Pareto Principle. It's also known as the 80-20 rule. Someone asked me to clarify that a little more. So that's actually going to be a good thing to go over, because you could tie that into your problem you're having here. So as far as fitting your individual practice, and this is not the first person who's asked me, like, I have school, what do I do? Well, all that. So now, I managed to do it. I did fit in school with individual practice. Now, that being said, I wasn't the best student. I got average grades. I didn't study as much as I should have. I didn't do homework sometimes. So don't follow that example. But you can definitely find time. If you keep yourself organized and you stay on top of things, you can find time. So on days where you're really bogged down, and you really just have a ton of homework, you can't get up early and everything, on those days, just plan it out. So because you know that you're not going to really have that much time, plan it out earlier in the day or the night before and say, okay, well, I'm going to have a little bit of time here. I'll practice then, and this is what I'm going to practice. Have a clear plan of what you're going to do, because then you're not going to be wasting time later on the actual day, in the actual moment, on what do I need to do? What am I going to practice? You're not going to really be faffing about a bit. So make sure you plan out first and foremost the night before. So let's say it's going to be Tuesday. It's Monday night and you're planning it out. So you think, okay, well, I can't practice in the morning because I'm getting up at 5:30. I'm going to school. Can't practice at school. You could, but that's a bit, don't do that. Can't practice at school. And then after school, let's say you get home at, I don't know what time you get home. Let's say you get home at 3 and you're doing homework pretty much and eat at 8. So let's just say, or you do homework, you eat dinner and everything, and you're done by 8. So you might be a little tired by then, understandable. But then maybe on your schedule you put, okay, 8:30, I'm just going to, for 30 minutes, work on my dribbling, or for 30 minutes, work on my ball control. If you can spare 15 to 30 minutes each night on that schedule, and plan it out the day before. It'll make things so much easier. So you know what you're going to do. Have exactly what you're going to do. Okay, I'm going to start off by juggling. I'm going to do some wall controls. I'm going to, do some 2-touch. I'm going to do some 1-touch, whatever it may be. Have it all planned out. It's going to make it a lot easier for you, and you're more likely to stick with it. And this is backed by research. You're more likely to stick with something when you write it down. Okay, so that's something you can do. Now, on the days that you do not have school, on the days that you have a full day free, that's when you do your more intense training, okay? Because for school days, you're pretty much going to be resting the whole time. You have your homework and everything, but physically, you're not exerting that much. So 15 to 30-minute sessions aren't really going to tire you out that much. You're going to be resting almost the whole week besides those sessions, so it's the weekends now that you're going to really exert yourself. So that's when you're going to have maybe an hour session or an hour and a half. And on these sessions, it's going to be up to you what you practice on. It's going to be, you're going to have to identify what is it I need the most work on, and then build yourself some training routines. So let's say dribbling and skill moves is something you really want to work on. It's something that you think is a weakness or something, or it's even a strength that you want to strengthen further. Make sure you have a schedule and a plan for that. So have drills that you want to do, how many times you want to do them, reps, repetitions, rest, plan everything out. Don't leave anything up to chance, because I used to do this a lot where I wouldn't schedule what I'm going to do. I would get to the field and I would just kind of mess about for an hour and a half, and I'd still get a little bit better from that because I am getting touches on the ball. I'm still practicing. But when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to go do this drill, and then I'm going to do this drill, then this drill, then this drill, and that will be an hour. When I started doing that and focusing and concentrating on specific things, I got a lot better. It worked a lot more. So there's an idea for you. That's something you can definitely do. Definitely something I recommend. It's unfortunate that you don't have that much time, but you just have to work with your situation. You have to kind of work with what you have. You can't, magically produce time out of thin air. So, since that's not an option, just plan a little better. Just schedule and discipline yourself a little more, and you'll be able to find the time you need in order to practice, okay? So that's the first question. And if you, I forget who asked me that, but if you have any more questions on that, just leave a comment down below, or you can DM me on Instagram or something, whatever it may be. Let me know if you have more questions about that. But that's roughly what you probably should be trying to do. So I'm going to check the time on here real quick, because I did not set a timer, and we've done, is that 7 minutes? Hold on. Yeah, I think it's like 7 minutes. All right, 7 minutes. So I'm going to set this timer real quick as I move on to the next question. So I think I'm going to leave the Pareto Principle as the last question, because that one I feel is one I could go on for a while. So 23 minutes we're looking for. So the next question is what to do when you're injured. How to keep going, what to do when you're injured. So this is an interesting question because, again, this is a very broad topic, because there are minor injuries, there are, injury scares, and then there are major injuries. There are or kind of medium injuries, and then major injuries. So what to do when you're injured? Well, first and foremost, you need to rest. The last thing you want to do when you're actually injured is keep playing. And I've made this mistake, and I paid for it with 8 months out not playing in college. So you don't want to do that. I had a slight, I had tightness in my back. It was bothering me, and I went out and practiced anyway, shooting around, and then I ended up having a disc bulge and sciatica, which, if any of you know what sciatica is, it's incredibly painful, and that really taught me not to play injured, because you're just going to make something worse. When you're in pain, when a part of your body hurts, your body is trying to tell you something. It's saying, get that shit looked at, man. Get that under control, because if you keep going, you're going to do more damage, right? So sometimes it might just be muscle pain, and you might need to stretch and ice it or something like that. Like the other day, I got pain in my knee. I was playing around, some people who were playing at the field I usually practice at, some guy named Miguel came up and was nice enough to ask if I wanted to play. I did, and 10 minutes in, I passed a ball with the outside of my foot and extended my leg a little more than I meant to, and I felt something in my knee that became really painful, so I had to leave early, and I went home, I iced it, I stretched, and I did everything, and, it's a couple days later now, and I feel a lot better. So sometimes that's all you need, but of course I'm going to be looking at it a little more. I'm going to be a little careful. I'm going to be making sure that there's no more pain, that I'm not doing anything else to it. But sometimes that's all you need It's just a little bit of rest, a little bit of ice, and you'll be good. But sometimes you need a little more than that. So first you need to figure out what kind of injury is it, right? Sometimes it might just be a minor thing like that where you just need to take some precautions. You need to ice it. You need to, just make sure you're not being stupid, essentially. And then there are other injuries you really just can't play on. Like if you have serious pain in a part like in your knee or in your leg or in your ankle or something, and I mean serious pain to where it hurts walking or something like that, you need to get it checked out. Because the last thing you want to do is do what I did and play injured. I know it's frustrating, and especially frustrating to me. Like if this knee thing turned out to be a serious injury, that would have been devastating for me, because that would have mean for me months of not playing, and I've been working hard to get in really good shape so I can go out for a team sometime soon. So that would have been terrible. But I also know, that's outside of my control. If I'm injured, I need to take care of it. There's no point feeling sorry for myself. There's no point getting down, because that's not going to heal my knee or ankle or whatever you injure. So that's the first thing. Identify what it is. Second, if it's still pretty bad, go see a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you. A lot of you sometimes ask like how to get rid of knee pain, how to do all this stuff. I can tell you things that I've done, but ultimately, if it's bad, you need to go see a doctor. I'm not by any means a doctor, and no one should take medical advice from me. So make sure you get it checked out, get a scan. See if your doctor wants, your doctor should know right away whether it's something that's going to be fine and you can just kind of rest for a little bit, or something you need to go to a specialist to take a look at. Another thing you can try is physical therapy. I had to go through a lot of physical therapy when I hurt my back. I went through probably half a year of physical therapy, which I'm glad I did, because now I know certain stretches that help me prevent anything happening to my back again. So make sure you're doing that as well. So if you have a light injury now that's keeping you out, we're moving on from major injury. Major injury, you don't do anything. Get a doctor to see it and rest. Don't do anything. Don't be silly, because you do not want to keep injuring the same area over and over again. That's the worst thing you can do. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen certain pros who are always out injured, and it always seems to be the same place. Like it always seems to be their knee or their hip or their ankle. That's because if you injure something over and over again, it weakens. Sometimes it comes back stronger. Like when you break a bone for the first time, it actually grows back stronger, apparently. But if you keep re-injuring the same place, it's weak. It's becoming weaker and weaker and weaker each time. So don't give yourself the best opportunity not to have any reoccurring injuries. Okay. So now if you are kind of injured and you're maybe out for a week, let's say, you still can, don't do any crazy things. You have to gauge how injured you are. You have to kind of see, can I do some light drills and anything? Just don't push yourself. Sometimes you might be able to do like some juggling and something. Do whatever you can and whatever is recommended to you, but don't overdo it. The last thing you want to do is overdo it. Again, keeping yourself out longer, which is obviously something you don't want. So make sure you might be able to do some light training, but make sure like your doctor says it's okay, your coach says it's okay. Don't do anything against what they say, because again, the last thing you want is a worse injury or to prolong the injury. So other things you should be doing, this is outside major injuries, but like a light injury, a medium injury, is maybe be stretching if you can. If you're able to stretch, your doctor or physical therapist may recommend that. I had to do that a lot when I had a bad back. Pretty much my cure was stretching. Like it was just saying, oh yeah, do these stretches every single day, do them twice a day if you want. That'll help the process faster. So that's what I did, and it took my pain away almost immediately. So stretching is a good thing to do. I mean, you're not going to be able to play, so you're going to have a lot of downtime. Find ways to occupy your time, and stretching is a great thing to do. Be icing it if that's something you should be doing as well. Like if it's a knee, if it's an ankle, whatever it is, make sure that's going to help in your recovery. Again, if it's a more serious injury, ask your doctor, because I don't know. Icing is usually for recovery. If you have a big injury, I don't know how much ice is going to really do anything. So make sure you're asking your doctor. So that's basically what to do when you're injured. It's very simple. There's no big complicated thing to it. It's just don't be stupid. That's my rule whenever I injure myself, is don't be stupid. Right? I have to remind myself that you can't play right now, man. Don't be stupid. Don't go out there. I know you want to, but don't be stupid because you're just going to be out longer if you end up injuring us again. Like when I was playing in that game I just told you about where I felt something in my knee, there was a thought in my head that said, it's probably nothing, you can keep going. But then I thought, don't be stupid. You know it could be something, you need to rest it. So that's what you need to do. So what to do when you're injured. Okay, so the last thing we're going over, and we have 16 minutes to do it. Oh, so plenty of time, really, is the Pareto Principle. And this is the 80-20 rule. And I think Hashir asked me about this. I can't remember his exact question. I don't know if I can bring it up here. But it was kind of like, I think my thoughts, or kind of to explain a little more about it, like what it is. And this is actually a rule. I've heard this one so many times. And I think, like, without even realizing, I've been applying this rule to my life just because I'm always about productivity and self-help and things like that. So it's kind of led me in that direction. But let me explain to you exactly what it is. I'm just going to find the exact question real quick, because that'll probably... Okay, should be right here. Is it? Oh, that's why. Oh, there's some other questions I missed. Some of these are pretty good. Okay, maybe I'll answer one more question. But here it is. So I want to know your opinion on the 20% effort, 80% results rule. I forgot who came up with the theory. So yeah, it's Pareto. Pareto actually didn't come up with the theory. Someone else did. But they labeled it the Pareto Principle. I think that's what happened. I'm not exactly sure. So what you think the most important things to work on mental. Okay. So what the Pareto Principle is, or says, it says 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your inputs. Now this, again, before we go any further, the Pareto Principle it's an observation. This is not a law. This is not like gravity. It's not like something that is, and it's not like physics. It's an observation. So sometimes it applies. It's kind of like he observed things and he said most of the time this seems to happen, right? So this is not like a concrete law. This is just an observation. So there are times when it could be like the 90-10 rule or the 99-1 rule, that 99% of your outcomes come from 1% of your inputs. It could be that. It's just in general, 80-20 is the way that they went with it. So the ratio can vary, but we just remember it's the 80-20 rule. So usually this rule is brought about when it comes to work and productivity and happiness, kind of like, what can you do to be happy? But we can apply this to soccer. So essentially, 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your inputs. It's saying that 20% of what you do is resulting in 80% of your outcomes or desired results. So what we do with this, we have to focus on what are those 20% inputs. So what is that 20% that's contributing to 80% of our results, and how can we do more of those? So essentially being more productive, doing things that are going to help you produce more results, and not doing those other things, that other 80% that's not really helping you that much, and kind of moving away from that and doing the other things. So that's basically what it is. And this is like I think in an average person, it's 80-20. I mean, there are people who know about the 80-20 rule and I guess have used it to become much more productive and get many more results. So their ratio would be a lot different now. But usually this is typical. 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your inputs. So for soccer, the way we can maximize this or use this is to focus on those 20%, that 20% effort that is getting us those 80% of outcomes, right? So, and this is big because you only have so many hours in the day to do things. So you want to be focusing on the things that give you the most results. Now there's actually, so here, let's go over some things in soccer you can do. And this is why I always talk about things like multifaceted drills. Multifaceted drills. These are things that give you your outcomes. Multifaceted drills are essentially drills that cover more than one area of your game. They're not just like focused solely on one thing. Now there's advantages to focusing solely on one thing. Like if you want to get really good at like the elastico or your step overs or something, focusing solely on that one move and doing it over and over again will get you really, really good at that move, but you have to kind of weigh that against how much you want to do that and how much you want to do other things. So the first thing you need to do is, what is it you really want to improve? What is it you really want to see results in? Then we're going to start focusing on those things. So a multifaceted drill I always recommend is kicking against a wall. When I used to practice as a kid, when I used to practice, I no longer practice. It's been years since I practiced. No, but when I was a kid, when I used to practice as a kid, there was a wall behind my house that I used to kick against. And again, this was me using the 80-20 rule without even realizing it. There was a wall I used to kick against behind my house, sometimes for hours, sometimes for just 30 minutes, but almost every single day after school, later at night, I would go to this wall and kick against it. I would, trap the ball in my chest, my thighs. I would juggle while I was there. I would practice some moves. I would practice my shooting. I would practice, receiving the ball and turning with it. I would practice basically everything. And without me realizing, this made me really, really good. And this is one of the things. This is probably 20% of my training was probably that wall drill thing I was doing every night. Because I would have team training and individual training, and I'd go kick around with my mates after school. But 20% of my training, and this is kind of cool because the 80-20 comes in almost perfectly here, but 20% of the time, my practice was kicking against that wall, and I guarantee it gave me 80% of my outcome. 80% of my skill, 80% of my ball control, 80% of all these things. That's an idea of a drill that, although simple, that although was only I was only doing maybe 20% of the time, was 20% of my effort, was giving me 80% of my results or more. The ratio might vary. It might be a bit different. But for example, doing that wall training was benefiting me more. Like doing 30 minutes of that wall training was benefiting me more than an hour and a half of my team practice that I was getting after school. Now, for those of you who have team practices, you can't really avoid them. So it's not like you can now do more wall drills over team practices. But for example, when I figured that out, I started prioritizing that drill over other things that were not benefiting me quite as much, right? So by making sure I got to a wall every single day, I may have been skipping other drills that I could be doing, but it didn't matter because I knew that more outcome or more results would come as a result, twisting myself up there, as a result of doing that drill, which maximized my improvement, maximized my training and all that. So, as you're also asked, what are the most important things to work on? Mental training, analyzing games, actual ball training. So I think we can categorize this. I think we can kind of piece this off into different categories. So when it comes, we'll categorize it like this: physical with the ball training, okay? Mental training, so things like confidence, visualization. We'll do analyzing, and then we'll do physical fitness, okay? So there's 4 areas. So the idea is we want to pick the drills that are most beneficial in those areas, and we also, some things are more important than others, so we want to prioritize those. So with actual ball training, I always recommend practicing on a wall. I don't care, you don't have to do it every single time. Like sometimes you're going to want to go to the pitch and shoot on net, but for anything to do with the ball, actual ball training, get to a place with a wall. Get to a street with a wall. That's perfect. Bring some cones with you. Bring something. Do your dribbling drills at that wall. Do all your drills there. That's going to be much more beneficial than you just going to the field and practicing, and which is okay. I mean, again, if you're just doing your dribbling one day, it's fine to go to the field, but practicing with the wall is going to help you improve much. So that's maximizing or potentially maximizing your results right there. Whenever you're doing ball training, go to a wall. Bring cones. Bring all your equipment you need. Do your dribbling while you're there. Use the wall. Kick against the wall. Save 15 to 20 minutes at the end to kick against that wall. Okay, so next is mental training. So figuring out the best mental exercises that are going to help increase your confidence in things in the least amount of time. So I have a video, again, that goes over a technique you can do, a visualization technique. This is something I recommend you doing. It doesn't even take long. You could do this for 10, 20 minutes a day. But simply by doing that, it's going to yield a lot of result. It's going to yield maybe 80% of your results when it comes to your mentality. Analyzing games. Again, Another way, you could just analyze any old game, or you could analyze games and concentrate and focus solely on your position. You can analyze games where you know you're going to learn a lot from that game. Again, you have to really you have to focus on the things that are going to help you improve the most. It's not good enough to just kind of be wishy-washy with it and be like, oh, well, here's a game, I'll just review this game, I'll analyze this game. That's not good enough. Analyze a game where you're like, okay, in this game, whoever you're so let's say I want to analyze a Barcelona game. I'll be like, okay, Suarez supposedly did very, very well in this game, and I want to take a look at some of the positives from his game. I'm going to analyze this game, take some notes, see what he did. Maybe you want to do it for the opposite reason. Okay, I think Suarez actually had a very bad game in this one, so I do want to analyze it so I can see what he's doing wrong, and I can maybe think of what could he do right. What was the last thing? And physical fitness. Now, physical fitness is a bit of a tricky one, because I'm a huge fan, again, of multifaceted things. So I think physical fitness, your bulk of your physical fitness should come from your actual drills that you're doing, right? I think after each session, you should be pretty tired. So if you're at the wall doing cone drills, go all out. Make sure you're tired at the end. Like, if you're not tired at the end of your training, and I get into this sometimes, I'm guilty of this sometimes, and I need to make sure I'm doing it. You need to be tired at the end of each one of your training sessions, because if you're not, that means you didn't push yourself to the point where you're improving your fitness. If you're just casually going through it and going through the motions and you're like fine at the end, you're not really that tired, you probably improved whatever you were working on, but you definitely didn't improve your fitness. Fitness there's a thing like, if you, for example, run a mile and you're able to do it in 6 minutes, and every single time you run that mile, you can do it 6 minutes easier, or you can do it in 6 minutes, no problem, you're not actually getting fit. You're just staying in the same place. You're able to run it try doing that, running a 6-minute mile for like 2 weeks. And then on the next day, running a 5-minute and 50-second mile. You'll be surprised at how much harder it is. And I was confused when I did this, because I'm like, wait a second, shouldn't I be able to do this easily? I've been able to do 6-minute miles for no problem, right? But the point is, unless you're pushing yourself, you're not getting in more shape. You're just getting better at doing that 6-minute mile. That's it. You're getting better at doing the same thing. But you haven't pushed yourself to the point where you can do it in less time. So you always have to keep pushing yourself. If you want to get better in shape, you need to push yourself. If you want to dribble through those cones faster, you have to keep pushing yourself to do that. So make sure, if you want to improve your physical fitness, you're concentrating on the right things. Again, doing it with your actual training and making sure you're tired at the end of that training. You can still do regular fitness stuff, like you want to do speed training and things, like specific things. But I'm a big fan, again, of getting your fitness in while you train with the ball and other things like that, or doing it at the end of your training, like taking 10 minutes at the end to do just a little bit of fitness to tire yourself out. Okay. So the most important thing is break it down into those 4 areas and then pick the most important areas there. Now, again, when analyzing games, you do not need to analyze games every single day. With mental training, I would do a little bit of mental training every day, but you don't need to do like hours of mental training. You can just do 10 to 20 minutes and reap the benefits from that. With fitness, you can do that with your regular practice. Now, if you practice every day, do it with your regular practice, and then maybe have a couple of days a week where you focus solely on fitness. You do a 30-minute to an hour fitness session with speed training and things like that. That's fine. Actually, that's something I'm going to be doing in my own training. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm trying to incorporate a speed training routine, but I'm still going to be practicing with the ball later. So, you just have to kind of figure out what is most beneficial in these things. So the specific question that Hashir asked is, what do you think the most important things to work on is? Again, you need to categorize it. Again, there's not going to be one thing, because there's so many different areas of soccer. In most sports in general, physical and mental, you do need to categorize it, but those are the 4 main categories I would put it into: mental training, training with the ball; physical, training with the ball; analyzing professional matches and your own matches, which actually I kind of put towards the mental side. So that's kind of mental training as well, but we'll give it its own category. And then your own physical fitness, like how fit you are. And also with your physical fitness, we'll put your diet in there as well. Like, are you eating right? Things of that nature. So in each of those categories, what are the efforts or the inputs that are giving you the most outcomes, the most results, right? And you want to focus mainly on those. So let me see if I can. We only have 5 minutes left, but like here's an example. I use this example quite a bit. Again, kicking against a wall is a great drill that's going to improve many different areas of your game because inevitably it saves you time because the ball comes right back to you. It works on your technique if you're focusing on your technique and you're working on locking your ankle and all that. It works on your ball control because you have to stomp the ball as it bounces back to you. So there's 3 areas right there, and there's more as well. So let's compare practicing your shooting against a wall to shooting against a net. So even if you take a lot of balls, and I still shoot against the net. I mean, you guys have seen my raw shooting series thing, so I still do that. But there's also a wall at that field that I use as well. But here's the difference. Shooting against the net works on one area. It's your shooting, because there's no rebound. You're not saving time, because if you miss the net, or even if you put it in the net, you have to go collect the balls for the next round. And if you only have one ball, that's a lot of running around for not so many shots. Where if you have a wall, all you need is one ball. You're saving time because the ball's coming right back to you. You're working on your shooting. You get to take more shots in less time. You get to work on your ball control, and you have to because the ball's coming back to you one way or another. So you're forced to work on your ball control essentially, and you can do a lot more. So this is an example of an input compared to another input. So an action compared to another action that gives you more outcome, that yields more results. So when choosing between the two, if you want 80%, if you want more of those results, you would focus on doing the wall drill instead of shooting on net. And again, I'm not opposed to shooting on net. I do it sometimes. It's fun. But your main training, you should be focusing with that wall. And that's just an example. So you need to compare everything you do. You need to analyze everything you do and recognize, okay, what are the efforts that are giving me the most results, the most outcomes, the whatever it may be. And that's what the Pareto Principle essentially is. So 20% of your inputs, 80% of your outcomes. Again, this ratio varies, and what you want to do is get that ratio so where a lot of your inputs are resulting in a lot as well. And again, another misconception with this rule is it doesn't always have to add up to 100. It can be less and it can be more. So when researching this, that's something I discovered. I actually didn't know that, but it doesn't always have to add up to 100. So you could be putting in, it could be 60% of your inputs are making 90% of your outcomes, which doesn't add to 100, but it could be the case, okay? So you want to just make sure that the actions you are taking are contributing more to better outcomes. And we do this all the time because we get caught up with habits and we get caught up with behaviors that we think are kind of resulting in things but are not. So this is going to take a lot of you analyzing the things that you're doing, the actions that you're taking, and really being honest with yourself and saying, are these actually benefiting me in some way? And if they aren't, is there something I can replace it with that will benefit me more, right? And you have to be really, really honest with yourself on that, right? So you could be, I don't know what you could be doing. So I can't think of an example, but let's say you're doing a certain drill and you're getting results as a player because you're training many different things, but then you're looking at this drill and you're going, is this really benefiting me? If the answer is no, or is it benefiting me a lot? If it's just benefiting you a tiny amount, think of other things you could do in that time that you had allocated to that drill or whatever you were doing, and think, is there something else I can replace that with and have more outcome because of it? All right. So there's a very all over the place explanation on the Pareto Principle. Again, you can look up, you know what? I will leave a link in the description, in fact, to some more explanation to this and how you can, it won't be soccer related. I mean, it just won't be, I don't think. It'll just be in general. But you can take a look more at this. It's definitely something, you know, a lot of people have used this principle to better their lives, have used it to get better at certain things, have used it to balance themselves. So definitely worth checking out the Pareto Principle. Just Google Pareto Principle, the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule. And you'll get a ton of articles. And again, I will leave one of the articles that I looked at down in the description, so you can take a look at that for those of you who want a little more information on it, because I found a few good ones that I think explain it pretty well. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed that. In this one, we went over how to fit school and soccer together, what to do when you are injured, and the Pareto Principle. So this week's hashtag, let's do that first. We'll do hashtag Pareto, which is just spell it the best you can. I'll get it. It's Pareto. So hashtag Pareto, and that just lets me know that you've listened all the way to the end. Even if you don't have a question or comment, put that in the comments down below, because it kind of reveals to me the players who are listening to these all the way to the end and are really serious about things. If you do have a question, it is more likely I'll answer it with that hashtag. Not always. If I really like a question, I'm going to answer that. Or if I'm not really too keen on a certain question, I might not. But definitely you have more of a chance if you do hashtag whatever it is I say. So this week, hashtag Pareto will let me know you've watched it and give you more of a chance of having your question answered. So make sure you leave me all your questions down below. Guys, make sure you also like and share this podcast. That helps them get around in front of more players. It's always helpful for the channel. I definitely want to keep growing the channel, so that will definitely help. Also, if you're new to Simply Soccer, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for listening to a 30-minute plus podcast. That's pretty awesome that you would do that when you're not even subscribed. So definitely consider subscribing. We do this every week and have other videos during the week as well. Again, guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be posting a lot of stuff on there, so you'll definitely want to be getting on there. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Leave your questions down below. This has been podcast 18, 19, I don't know, something. I'll know in a sec. All right, see you guys next time.